Welcome to Daily News in AI Agents, the place to get a quick roundup of the most exciting developments in AI agents every day. Subscribe to our LinkedIn newsletter today in the link below to stay activated.
Yeah, well, OpenAI, they had a busy day.
They did.
It seems like they didn't just release one big update, but two.
Right.
First, ChatGPT can now remember past conversations, so it's kind of getting closer to that feeling like you're having an actual dialogue.
Exactly.
But then they also launched these new O3 models that they're claiming are like a whole other level.
Yeah, the O3 models have been getting a lot of attention.
Yeah.
OpenAI is saying they were a major step forward in AI reasoning.
Okay.
They even scored an 87.5% on the Arc AGI benchmark, which is a big deal in terms of measuring how well an AI can solve problems and basically think like we do.
So AGI benchmark, that sounds pretty intense.
It is.
Can you explain what that is and like why that score is so important?
Yeah, so AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence, which is basically the idea of an AI that can do any intellectual task.
Okay.
That a human can, basically a machine that can think like us.
Got it.
On a broad scale.
Yeah.
So these benchmarks are sets of tests that are designed to see how close an AI is to reaching that level of general intelligence. And that 87.5% that O3 scored is way higher than anything we've seen before, which is why everyone's talking about it.
So are we like on the verge of having machines that can actually think like us?
Not quite yet. While this score is a big step, it's important to remember that these benchmarks are just one way to measure progress in AI. And O3 is impressive, but it still has limitations. But what's really interesting is how OpenAI actually trained these models. They use a new safety paradigm where the AI is basically taught to consider its own safety policy when it's making decisions.
Wait, so the AI is thinking about its own safety? Like, how does that even work? Is it like it has a conscience now or something?
It's not about conscience like in a human sense, but more about embedding safety protocols directly into how the AI functions. TechCrunch had a report on this.
Yeah.
And it seems like OpenAI is really trying to stay ahead of potential problems with these really powerful systems.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see how this approach to AI safety develops.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like we're going to want to keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
Moving on to something that feels a little less sci-fi.
Sure.
What's this? I hear about AI composing music just from a hum. That sounds kind of amazing.
It is pretty amazing. Adobe just released this new AI tool called Sketch 2 Sound, and it's causing a stir in the audio world.
Okay.
Basically, sound designers can use it to create soundscapes in music just by humming or mimicking sounds.
Yeah.
And then the AI takes those inputs and translates them into these complex audio compositions.
So you're telling me I could hum a melody and the AI could turn it into a full orchestral arrangement?
Pretty much, yeah.
I've got to try this out.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea. But the real impact of this technology goes way beyond that.
Okay.
Think about the possibilities for film scores, video games, immersive experiences, anything that needs audio.
Right.
This could completely change how sound design is done and open up these crazy creative avenues we haven't even thought of yet.
That's incredible. And what about these robot scientists? I read something about a company called
Tetsuwan Scientific.
Yeah, Tetsuwan Scientific.
Yeah.
That's creating AI robots that can run their own experiments. Is that for real? That sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie.
No, it's very real, and it's potentially groundbreaking. These robots are designed to be more than just data analyzers.
Yeah.
They can actually diagnose scientific outputs, and they actually have the physical capability to conduct experiments based on what they've learned. We're talking about robots that can understand data, come up with hypotheses, and then test them in a lab, just like human scientists.
Wow, that's a huge game changer. It makes you wonder, like, what's going to happen to the scientific community as these AI-powered robots get even more sophisticated?
Yeah, it's a valid question, and it's something we're only starting to explore.
Right.
This level of AI involvement in research could speed up discoveries.
Yeah.
like crazy, but it also raises questions about the role of human researchers going forward.
Yeah, it's exciting, but definitely a little unnerving too.
Absolutely.
And speaking of navigating the impact of these rapid AI advancements, we came across this podcast episode called
Responsible AI in the Generative Era.
Yeah, Responsible AI in the Generative Era with Michael Kearns.
Yeah.
It seems like everyone's talking about responsible AI these days, but what does that actually mean in practice?
Right. It's a great question. That podcast goes really deep into that. And Kearns raises some really important points. One of the things he talked about is how hard it is to use what are called service card metrics to evaluate AI systems.
Yeah.
Basically, it's tough to measure the real-world impact of AI using traditional methods.
Okay.
He also talks about growing concerns about data privacy and something called hallucinations in AI models.
Hallucination?
Yeah, where they basically generate information that sounds believable but is actually wrong.
Okay. That sounds a little creepy.
It can be, especially when you think about these models being used in fields where accuracy is critical, like science or policy decisions.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
Definitely.
So if traditional metrics aren't enough, how do we make sure that AI is being developed responsibly, especially with these super powerful models like O3 coming out?
Right. Well, Kearns really stresses the need for new and robust benchmarks that are made specifically to evaluate large language models, which are what models like ChatGPT and O3 are based on.
He's pushing for more transparency in how these systems are developed and a focus on accountability within the whole AI industry.
So it sounds like we need to be having some serious discussions about the ethical frameworks surrounding AI development.
Yeah, absolutely.
But while we're on the topic of AI and its impact, I want to touch on something that's happening right here in the U.S. political landscape.
Okay.
We saw that Sriram Krishnan has been appointed as Trump's senior policy advisor for AI. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this appointment definitely shows how important AI is becoming in policymaking.
Yeah.
Krishnan's background is really interesting. He's a former general partner at Andreessen Horowitz.
Okay.
So he really understands both the tech industry and the financial world.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how he approaches AI regulation and development from this new position.
Yeah, it definitely feels like AI is becoming a major factor in global politics, to get a different perspective.
Sure.
We also listened to that upsides and downsides of offering AI in the EU podcast episode with Maxim Khalilov.
Right. He really dives into the unique opportunities and challenges of developing AI in Europe, which seems to have a very different approach.
It does.
Compared to what we're seeing in the U.S.
Yeah, the EU has always been pretty cautious with new tech, and that's definitely true with AI. They put a big emphasis on data privacy and ethical considerations.
Okay.
Which often means stricter regulations compared to the more innovation-driven environment that we see in the U.S.
So it's like there are these two different models emerging for how we approach AI development and regulation.
Yeah.
Do you think one approach is better than the other?
It's not that simple.
Right.
Both approaches have their pluses and minuses.
Okay.
The EU's focus on ethical stuff is really important, especially with the potential impact of AI on society.
Yeah.
But some people argue that their strict rules could stifle innovation.
Right.
On the flip side, the U.S. approach might be faster, but it also raises concerns about potential risks and unintended consequences. It'll be interesting to see how these different approaches play out in the long run.
Yeah, it does feel like we're watching this global AI race unfold with different regions kind of competing for leadership in this like game-changing technology.
Yep, absolutely.
And speaking of the future of tech, we came across some interesting insights from Netlify CEO Matt Billman.
Oh, yeah.
In a recent Stack Overflow podcast.
Okay.
He was talking about the rise of UI 2.0 and how it's going to totally change software development.
UI 2.0 is a fascinating concept. It basically refers to this new era of user interfaces that are powered by AI.
Okay.
Where software becomes more intuitive, personalized, and even predictive.
Interesting.
Billman thinks that this shift will fundamentally change how we interact with technology and how software is designed and built.
So AI is not just changing how we use tech, but also how we build it.
Yeah.
It's impacting the entire tech landscape from both ends.
Absolutely. And it's happening incredibly fast. We found this Google DeepMind blog post that really highlighted this point. They looked back at 2023 and called it a year of truly groundbreaking advances in AI and computing.
Yeah.
With the potential for even faster progress in the coming years.
Wow. That's exciting, but it also makes you wonder if we're really ready for all this change.
It's definitely a lot to process.
Yeah, we need to take a step back and consider the potential downsides of all this AI advancement.
Right.
And this brings us to a pretty thought-provoking article we found on VentureBeat.
Okay.
It argues that the recent U.S. election results could actually lead to a more reckless approach to AI development.
Oh, wow.
Where the focus is on pushing the boundaries as fast as possible without really thinking about the consequences.
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
That article really highlighted a potential trend where the excitement around AI innovation kind of overshadows important ethical considerations and the need for strong safety measures.
Right.
We've seen this happen with other technologies in the past, and it's crucial that we learn from those mistakes and put responsible development first when it comes to AI.
So how do we find that balance between like pushing the limits of what's possible with AI while also making sure it's being developed and used responsibly? It feels like a tough line to walk.
It is a delicate balance, and there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
It needs a multifaceted approach.
Okay.
Involving clear regulations, ethical frameworks for AI development, and open discussions about the potential benefits and risks.
Yeah.
We need to be proactive in shaping the future of AI, making sure it aligns with our values and benefits humanity as a whole.
Okay. All of this is definitely a lot to take in. I'm feeling super excited about the future of AI, but also a little nervous about the potential pitfalls.
I think that's natural.
Yeah. But let's end this part of our deep dive on a more positive note.
Sounds good.
Let's talk about something that just totally blew my mind. DNA computing.
Ah, yes.
I learned all about it from the Intel on AI podcast with Louis Sayes.
Okay.
And it was like stepping into a sci-fi novel.
I can imagine.
They were talking about how DNA could potentially be used to store massive amounts of data, like millions of times more than what we can store on traditional hard drives.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? To think that one day we could be storing entire libraries or historical archives or huge scientific data sets all within tiny strands of DNA.
And they actually did it. They stored the entire OK Go music video.
Oh.
This too shall pass on DNA.
That's incredible.
How cool is that?
It's quite a feat of engineering. But beyond the cool factor, the implications of this tech are huge.
Okay.
DNA is super stable and can last for thousands of years, which means this could be a totally new approach to long-term data storage.
So we could be preserving our digital heritage for generations to come, all within tiny vials of DNA?
Exactly.
That's amazing. But what about the practical side of things? Is it actually possible to store data on DNA at a large scale?
That's where it gets really interesting. One of the biggest challenges right now is the cost and complexity of actually making DNA strands to encode the data. But CZ talked about some really exciting advancements in what's called enzymatic synthesis of DNA, which could make this whole process much more efficient and affordable.
So not only could DNA storage be super dense and long-lasting, but it could also become cheaper and more practical in the coming years.
That's the idea.
This is seriously mind-blowing stuff.
It really is, and it shows the incredible potential of interdisciplinary research.
Right.
When we start blurring the lines between biology and technology, we open up possibilities that were unthinkable before.
All right. I think we need a break here to let all of this sink in.
Yeah, good idea.
We've covered a ton of ground in this first part of our deep dive, from the race to achieve artificial general intelligence, to robots becoming scientists and the mind-boggling possibilities of DNA computing.
It's a lot.
It's clear that the world of AI is changing super fast, and it's both exciting and a little scary to think about what the future holds. We'll be back in a bit to continue our deep dive into this incredible world of AI advancements, so stay tuned.
You know, it's amazing how we're seeing these AI breakthroughs impacting fields we might not have thought of at first. Like, who would guess that humming could lead to a whole musical score?
It's pretty wild, and I can see how tools like Adobe's Sketch 2 Sound could really open up creative possibilities for people who maybe don't have access to traditional music production tools.
Exactly. Imagine like aspiring filmmakers or game developers being able to create their own soundtracks and sound effects without needing a whole studio setup. It's really empowering.
But it also makes you think about like what happens to the professional sound designers and composers. If anyone can create professional quality audio using AI, what does that mean for the people who've spent years learning their craft?
It's a valid concern and something we need to be aware of as AI becomes more integrated into creative fields. It's likely that some roles will change. And new skills will be needed to stay ahead of the game.
It's like that whole conversation around AI and job displacement. It's not just about robots taking over factory jobs anymore. It's about AI potentially changing whole industries, including creative ones.
And it's not just about jobs either. It's about the impact on creativity itself.
Right.
Like what happens when AI can make art music, even stories on demand?
Yeah.
Does it devalue human creativity?
Yeah.
Or does it push us to find new ways to express ourselves?
Those are some big questions.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're getting more relevant every day as AI gets more advanced.
Absolutely.
It all comes back to that idea of responsible AI development. We need to be having these conversations now to make sure we're steering AI in a direction that benefits everyone.
I agree. It's not just about setting boundaries and safeguards.
Right.
It's also about helping people understand AI better, its potential and its limitations.
Okay.
We need to move past the hype and sensationalism to have real and thoughtful discussions about AI's role in our lives.
You know, when we were talking about OpenAI's O3 models earlier and how they did so well on those AGI benchmarks, it really made me think it's exciting to see AI becoming more capable.
Yeah.
But there's also part of me that's a little uneasy about it.
I think that's a normal reaction.
Okay.
We all grew up with stories about machines becoming sentient.
Right.
And now we're seeing real examples of AI doing things better than humans in some areas.
Yeah.
It's bound to make us ask some big questions about what it all means.
Exactly. And those questions aren't going away anytime soon.
Right.
Remember that article we talked about the potential for reckless AI development after the U.S. election?
Yeah.
It kind of painted this picture of a future where the race for AI dominance wins out over ethical considerations.
That article really highlighted the need for proactive measures to make sure AI development is responsible.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just react to problems after they happen. We need to anticipate them and set clear guidelines and frameworks to guide how AI is developed and used.
And it's not just the responsibility of governments and companies. We as individuals need to be informed about these advancements and take part in conversations about AI ethics and hold those in power accountable.
Absolutely. It's a shared responsibility.
Okay.
We all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI.
Yeah.
And it starts with education awareness.
Right.
And a willingness to engage in these complex conversations.
So let's switch gears for a minute and talk about something a little more tangible.
Okay.
We were both pretty amazed by that whole idea of DNA computing and storing information on DNA. It's one of those things that just totally changes how you think about technology.
It really does. And it highlights how combining different scientific fields can lead to breakthroughs we could never have imagined.
Right.
Who would have thought that the building blocks of life could be used to store digital information?
I remember listening to that Intel on AI podcast with Louis Seize.
Yeah.
And just being blown away by the potential of DNA storage. He was saying how it could be millions of times denser than our current storage technologies.
Right.
With the potential to store huge amounts of data in a tiny space.
It's amazing to think that we could be storing whole libraries or massive data sets in a small vial of DNA.
And what really struck me was Seize's point about how long DNA lasts.
Yeah.
It's incredibly stable and can last for thousands of years, making it perfect for long-term data storage.
Exactly. We're talking about a potential solution to the problem of digital preservation.
Right.
Making sure that valuable information in our cultural heritage can be saved for future generations.
It's almost poetic, the idea that the code of life could be used to preserve the code of our digital world.
I like that.
And it gets even more interesting when you think about the advances in enzymatic synthesis of DNA that Seize talked about.
Right.
This process could make DNA storage much more efficient and cost-effective.
Yeah.
Which could lead to it being used more widely in the future.
Absolutely.
So we're not just talking about some far-off possibility here. DNA storage could actually become a reality. In the not-too-distant future.
It could.
That's amazing.
It really shows how fast innovation is happening in both biology and technology.
Right.
And it highlights the importance of interdisciplinary research. When scientists from different fields work together, the possibilities are endless.
It's inspiring to think about what other groundbreaking discoveries might be out there as we keep exploring the intersection of these fields.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of interdisciplinary research, we can't forget about those robotic scientists we discussed earlier.
Oh, yeah.
The ones made by Tetsuwan Scientific.
Yeah.
They're another great example of how AI is pushing the boundaries of what's possible in scientific discovery.
It's still mind-blowing to me that we're now at a point where robots can actually do their own science experiments.
I know, right?
It's like something out of a movie, but it's happening right now.
It's a remarkable achievement.
Yeah.
And it has the potential to speed up scientific progress in ways we can't even imagine yet.
Right.
Think about drug discovery materials, science, even exploring space.
It's really exciting, but of course it also raises questions about the role of human scientists in this new landscape.
That's right. As AI-powered robots get more advanced, we need to think about how they'll fit into the scientific community.
Right.
Will they work with human researchers?
Yeah.
Will they eventually become more independent? These are questions we'll need to answer.
Okay.
As this technology keeps developing.
It's like we're entering a new era of scientific discovery, one where AI is not just a tool, but a collaborator.
Exactly.
And as with any collaboration, there will be challenges and new ways of working to figure out.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that AI, even in these robotic scientists, is still a tool that's controlled by humans. It's up to us to guide its development. And make sure it's used ethically and responsibly.
And speaking of ethical considerations, I want to go back to something we touched on earlier.
Sure.
The potential impact of AI on jobs.
Okay.
It's clear that AI is going to automate certain tasks and change how many jobs work. But does that automatically mean widespread job losses?
That's a complicated question with no easy answer.
Right.
While it's true that AI will probably lead to some jobs disappearing, it's also likely to create new jobs and opportunities we haven't even thought of yet.
It's like that classic example of the Luddites who were against the introduction of new textile machines during the Industrial Revolution. They were afraid machines would take their jobs. But in the end, those machines actually created new industries.
Exactly.
New jobs.
It's important to look at technological advancements, including AI, through a historical lens.
Okay.
History shows us that innovation often leads to disruption and change.
Right.
But it also creates new possibilities and opportunities.
So it's not about trying to stop technological progress,
Right.
but about adapting to it. And shaping it in a way that benefits everyone.
Exactly. And that requires a proactive approach to education retraining and upskilling the workforce to prepare them for the jobs of the future.
Right.
Many of which will definitely be shaped by AI.
I think it's also important to remember that AI isn't just one thing. It's a diverse field with lots of different applications, some of which are more likely to affect certain jobs than others.
Right.
We need to be specific in how we understand AI's potential impact on jobs and avoid making broad generalizations.
I completely agree. It's about looking at the specific tasks and skills that are likely to be automated. And then focusing on how we can give workers the knowledge and abilities they'll need to succeed in an AI-driven world.
And that brings us back to how important education and lifelong learning are.
Absolutely.
In a world where technology is changing so fast, being able to adapt and learn new skills will be more important than ever.
We need to embrace a culture of continuous learning. Where people are encouraged to upskill and reskill throughout their careers.
Right.
So they can keep up with the changing job market.
It's also about encouraging creativity, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills. The human qualities that will become even more valuable in a world where AI can do a lot of the routine tasks.
You're right. It's not about competing with AI, but about working with it. By focusing on our unique human strengths, like our ability to think creatively, to empathize, to make complex decisions. We can make sure AI becomes a tool that helps us rather than replaces us.
I like that perspective. It's about seeing AI as a collaborator, a partner in progress, not a threat.
Exactly.
And it shows how important human ingenuity and innovation are in navigating the future of work.
It's important to remember that the future isn't set in stone. Right.
It's something we're creating together through the choices we make. The technologies we develop, and the conversations we have about the world we want to live in.
That's a powerful thought.
It is.
It reminds us that we all have a role in shaping the future of AI. And it's a responsibility we shouldn't take lightly.
Definitely.
But before we get too philosophical about the future, let's take a quick break.
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment to keep exploring these amazing AI advancements. Okay, so we've talked about a lot in this deep dive into AI.
We have.
From AI models that can reason like us to robots doing science experiments. And even the potential of DNA computing. It's like we're living in the future.
It's been a wild ride, for sure, and it's clear that AI isn't just some niche thing anymore.
Yeah.
It's changing pretty much every part of our lives.
What surprised you the most as we've been going through all this?
I think it's the speed of it all.
Okay.
We're seeing breakthroughs in areas like natural language processing, image recognition, robotics.
Right. Stuff that we thought was years or even decades away, and it's happening now.
Right.
Just super fast.
Yeah, it's like that Google DeepMind blog post we mentioned where they talked about 2023 as this year of crazy advancements, and it sounds like it's only going to get faster from here.
Exactly. And that makes responsible AI development even more important.
Yeah.
We can't just get caught up in all the cool new stuff without thinking about the consequences.
That VentureBeat article about the potential for reckless AI development after the election really made me think.
It's a good reminder that progress shouldn't come at the cost of ethics and safety.
Right.
We need to be proactive about setting clear guidelines and frameworks for AI development that prioritize safety, fairness, and accountability.
It feels like a big responsibility.
It is.
And it's not something that governments and tech companies can handle alone.
I agree.
We all need to be informed about these advancements and participate in these conversations about AI ethics and how it's affecting society.
Absolutely. We all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI, and that starts with learning, being aware, and being willing to really think about these complicated issues.
I also think we should remember that while AI has challenges, it also has incredible potential.
Of course.
We've seen how AI can change scientific discovery, boost creativity, and even help us tackle some of the world's biggest problems.
It's all about finding that balance between using AI for good and minimizing the risks.
Right.
And that takes collaboration between researchers, policymakers, industry leaders, and the public.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main message you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, the future of AI isn't set in stone. It's something we're creating right now.
Okay.
Through the choices we make, the discussions we have, and the actions we take, it's a future with huge potential, but also potential dangers. And it's up to all of us to navigate it wisely and responsibly.
That's a great way to put it. I think the future of AI is in our hands. And we need to make sure it's a future that benefits everyone. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into AI.
My pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking. Be sure to check out the sources we mentioned and keep the conversation going online using #DeepDiveAI. Until next time, stay curious.